Alright, so I asked you to tell me whether speed or velocity was a vector. Let's start with the first one, speed. Now, the definition that I gave you for speed is distance divided by time. Now, time can arguably have a direction. If you're looking at thermal physics, we talk about entropy and entropy. We're talking there is a direction sort of, but for most cases we can treat time as a scalar. Okay, it just has a magnitude, 5 seconds, 8 seconds. It doesn't really have a direction towards it. Okay, so when we think of time, we think of it as a scalar. But looking at the first one, speed, distance divided by time. If time's a scalar and distance is a scalar, that means that speed needs to be a scalar. And if you think about it, if I'm traveling 50 miles per hour down the highway, I'm traveling 50 miles down the highway. That's my speed. It's not that I'm traveling 50 miles down the highway east or west. My speedometer doesn't tell me that. It simply tells me that I'm traveling 50 miles per hour. Okay? So when we refer to the speed of an object, we're referring to a scalar, something that only has direction, or correction, something that only has magnitude. Okay? How about velocity? We refer to velocity as the change in position over time, or the displacement over time. Now, we've already established that time is a scalar, but what about displacement? If you remember, our original definition of displacement is how far an object and in what direction that object is moving, or has changed from its starting position. But if first line there, how far and in what direction, that clearly is a vector. Size, how far, and direction. Okay? So when we're referring to the displacement, we're referring to a vector. So a vector divided by a scalar ends up giving me a vector. Okay? So when we're referring to the velocity of something, we're referring to a vector. Okay? So just to clarify a little bit of mathematics here, if we have a vector divided by a vector, or a vector multiplied by a vector, we can get a scalar out of that. Not always, but we can in some cases. So, but if we have a vector divided or multiplied by a scalar, we get nothing more than a vector. Scalars can't change a vector into a scalar. Only other vectors can do that. So we talk about speed being a scalar, we talk about velocity being a vector. It turns out of these two, we'll primarily talk about velocity. In very rare cases will we talk about speed. Okay? So that's the difference between velocity and speed. What I want to talk about next is averages. Average velocity and average speed, and how that can have an effect on things.